The match that made Real Madrid fans hate Ronaldinho. Football rivalries are usually built over decades, forged by politics, geography, trophies, and pride. Hatred in these rivalries grows slowly, match by match, controversy by controversy. But sometimes, just once, a single night can change everything. One match, one performance, one player who turns admiration into agony. For many supporters of, that moment arrived on an unforgettable evening in 2005, when delivered a performance so extraordinary that it crossed the boundary between rivalry and disbelief, the kind of display that forces even your fiercest enemies to stand up and applaud. And that, perhaps, was the most painful part of all. Rivalry was already written into history. By the time Ronaldinho arrived in Spain the clash between the two giants was already one of the most emotionally charged rivalries in world sport. Every meeting carried weight beyond the table. Identity versus identity. Style versus power. Two visions of football competing for supremacy. But even in fierce rivalries, respect remains manageable, until one player makes the opposition feel powerless. That night, Ronaldinho didn't just win a match. He made the impossible look casual. The stage, a stadium built for glory. The setting could not have been more symbolic. A ground synonymous with dominance, history, and expectation. This was where Madrid imposed itself on Europe. Where legends were supposed to shine in white, not be overshadowed by visiting magicians. The home crowd expected resistance. They expected battle. They did not expect to become witnesses. The first signs of trouble. From the opening minutes, something felt unusual. Ronaldinho was not playing at the frantic pace of a typical Clásico. He seemed calm, almost too calm, as if he already understood the rhythm of the match before anyone else had settled into it. Every touch slowed time, every turn dissolved pressure, every pass carried intention. Madrid's defenders were not just chasing the ball. They were chasing ideas. And they were already behind. When skill becomes psychological, great performances hurt opponents physically. Legendary performances hurt them psychologically. Ronaldinho's dribbling didn't simply bypass challenges, it dismantled confidence. Defenders hesitated, unsure whether to step forward or hold position. Midfielders tracked runs that vanished into sudden changes of direction. The match began to feel less like strategy and more like survival. Madrid, known for imposing control, suddenly looked reactive, trying to contain something they could not predict. The goals that changed the mood. Then came the moments that sealed the night into football folklore. Ronaldinho surged forward, gliding past defenders with a balance that seemed to defy gravity. There was no rush, no panic, just precision wrapped in flair. When he scored, it wasn't merely a goal. It was a demonstration. Later, he did it again. Another run. Another collapse of defensive structure. Another finish that left the stadium suspended between silence and astonishment. Madrid supporters had seen world-class players before. They had not seen one dismantle their team with such elegance. The applause no rival wants to give. What happened next remains one of football's most remarkable scenes. As Ronaldinho walked across the pitch after his second goal, sections of the Madrid crowd rose to applaud. Not out of loyalty, out of surrender to brilliance. In rivalries, applause for the opponent feels like betrayal. Yet in that moment, the performance transcended allegiance. Fans were no longer reacting as supporters, but as witnesses to something rare. That applause became the ultimate humiliation, and the ultimate compliment. Why Madrid fans never forgot. Madrid supporters didn't hate Ronaldinho in the traditional sense reserved for controversial rivals. Their frustration came from something deeper. He forced them to admire what had just defeated them. In football culture, there is nothing more uncomfortable than respecting the architect of your own downfall, especially when that downfall happens on your own turf. The match became a reference point, not just a loss. A lesson in beauty delivered by the opposition. A clash of philosophies on the pitch. That night symbolized more than a scoreline. It represented a philosophical contrast. Madrid's strength lay in power, structure, and inevitability. Ronaldinho embodied improvisation, joy, and unpredictability. The encounter showed how creativity could dismantle even the most formidable systems. It wasn't simply Barcelona beating Madrid. It was expression outplaying expectation. The global impact of the performance. The match resonated far beyond Spain and its audience. Around the world, fans replayed the highlights endlessly. Young players tried to replicate the runs. Analysts struggled to categorize what they had seen. Was it tactical brilliance or artistic instinct? It was both. And that duality made the performance timeless. From rival to reference point. Ironically, The display that caused frustration among Madrid fans also elevated Ronaldinho into a shared footballing reference point. Even those who supported Madrid began using that match as shorthand for individual brilliance, like Ronaldinho at the Bernabeu. It became less about rivalry and more about memory, a painful one for some, but unforgettable for all. Why the match still matters today. Years later, that night continues to be discussed because it captured something rare in modern sport, the moment when competition gives way to awe. It reminded the football world that rivalry, while intense, can still leave space for appreciation when greatness becomes undeniable. Madrid fans may not celebrate that match, but they remember it, and remembrance is its own form of respect. The paradox of sporting greatness. In the end, Ronaldinho didn't make Madrid fans hate him because of arrogance, controversy, or hostility. He did it by being too good, by delivering a performance so joyous, so devastatingly effective, that it left no emotional middle ground. They couldn't ignore him. They couldn't stop him. And, for one unforgettable night, they couldn't even refuse to applaud him. That is the paradox of legendary performances. They hurt most when they are beautiful. The match at the Bernabeu did more than produce goals or headlines. It created one of football's rare emotional contradictions, a night when rivalry met artistry, and even the proudest supporters had to acknowledge what they had just seen. Not just victory, but magic.